I think Wemby has a chance to win the MVP this season. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I'm saying that because Wemby is just built different. This man almost had a quadruple double last season against the Nuggets. He had 23 points, 15 rebounds, 9 blocks, and 8 assists. If Wemby just got one more block and 2 more assists, then he would have been the first player since David Robinson in 1994 to accomplish this. And last season, he would have easily won Defensive Player of the Year if he wasn't out for the rest of the season with a blood clot. Plus, this season, Wemby has more talent around him that can help the Spurs secure a playoff spot in the West. The Spurs have Fox, Carter Bryant, Harper, Sohan, Devin Vassell, Castle, Johnson, Barnes, and Cornette. But even with all that talent around him this season, for Wemby to have a chance at winning the MVP, it will depend on him taking a leap. In the East, this team could easily be a top 5 seed, but they're in a tough Western Conference, where I think they're going to be competing for the 10th to 7th seed with Memphis, Dallas, and Golden State. But if Wemby takes that leap, then the Spurs could easily be a top 5 seed. With him being the star player of the team, Wemby can have a chance at winning the MVP. Luka should win the MVP this season. Everyone knows that to win the MVP, a player needs to have a narrative to win. Jokic has won multiple MVPs because his team is one of the worst teams in the league when he's not on the floor. Shea won the MVP last season because he was the best player on a team that won 68 games. This season, Luka probably has the most attention out of any player in the NBA. People want to see how Luka plays for a full season on the Lakers after being traded by the Mavericks. The Mavericks were over here leaking everything they could to make Luka look bad after the trade. They were saying he was getting too big, couldn't stay healthy, and that his conditioning was bad. And after all that, Luka decided to take this offseason serious and is in the best shape since his rookie year. I really think the MVP is Luka's to lose. As long as he's healthy, has good stats, and the Lakers are a top 5 seed in the West, then he'll win the MVP. Jokic has a chance to be a champion again this season. This team that the Nuggets have built around Jokic is way better than the Nuggets team that won the championship in 2023. Cam Johnson to me is an upgrade over MPJ because he'll actually pass the ball and has shown that he can create shots for himself with the Nets. The Nuggets will miss Michael Porter Jr.'s rebounding though because Cam isn't good at rebounding at all. The Nuggets also have a solid bench after years of having one of the worst benches in the league. They'll have Tim Hardaway Jr., Bruce Brown, and Valanciunas that will give them solid minutes. And I'm excited to see how Day'Ron Holmes plays on this team. He was one of my favorite players in the 2024 draft because he's 6'10", athletic, a great rebounder, and shot 38% from 3 in college. He can easily play next to Jokic at the 4. After winning 3 MVPs, it'll be hard for Jokic to win another one, but he definitely has a chance to win another championship with this roster. KD is finally on a team that won't depend on him to do everything. The Suns depended on KD to be one of their best defenders, ball handlers, and scorers. Maybe KD would have worked on the Suns if he was 8 years younger, but KD is 36 years old and can't have that big of a workload. On the Rockets, he won't have to be the best defender with Amen Thompson and Terry Eason there. He also won't have to be the best ball handler on the Rockets with Reece Shepherd, Amen Thompson, and Fred VanVleet there. KD does have to be the best scorer for the Rockets to be a top 3 seed in the West though. But at least he has Sengun as a second option that can help him. The one weakness that KD has in his game is that he's not a great rebounder. KD is 6'11", so you would think he'd be averaging at least 9 rebounds a game. But nope, in the past 3 seasons he's been averaging 6 rebounds a game. At least the Rockets have enough players on the team that are great rebounders like Steven Adams. Trae Young is set up to have an interesting season. So far, the Hawks and Trae haven't agreed to an extension yet. And from all the reports I've seen, it's the Hawks that haven't offered Trae Young an extension. And with Trae Young having a player option next season, he could potentially be one of the biggest free agents next season. And this is a good season for Trae Young to show his value to the league. People focus too much on his defense, when he more than makes up for it on offense. And with the way the Hawks built this roster, they can easily hide Trae Young on defense with Dyson Daniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Porzingis. The Hawks have enough talent on the roster to be a top 5 seed. And if the Hawks are a top 5 seed, then Trae Young could potentially have an All-NBA season. Plus, the Hawks are in an Eastern Conference where anything can happen. The Hawks could be a second seed and I wouldn't be surprised. A player that has a lot of pressure on them this year is Paolo Banchero. The Magic have grown from being just a young team that's trying to make the playoffs to now being expected to be a top 4 seed in the East. And that should be the expectation since they traded 4 first-round picks for a win-now player in Desmond Bane. And if the Magic don't accomplish that, then the player that will feel the most pressure is their best player, which is Paolo Banchero. And up to this point, some NBA fans don't think he's a winning player because he's inefficient. And they like to point out that the Magic play better when Banchero is off the floor, while other NBA fans think that he can potentially be a top 15 player this season. I'm one of those people that think Banchero can be a top 15 player this season. I get that Banchero wasn't efficient last season, but he still averaged 26 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists in 46 games. And what do people expect him to do when nobody on the team can hit a 3? I think Banchero is doing fine, especially when you consider that he's barely in year 4 of his career. And now that Banchero has Bane that can hit 3s, I think his efficiency will go up and he'll have another all-star season. My expectations for this Magic team is for them to be a top 4 seed in the East and at least make it to the second round of the playoffs. I'm going to predict that Cade will finish top 4 in MVP voting this season. I don't think this is wild to say at all, especially when he finished 7th in MVP voting last season. And I don't think he's going to win the MVP this season unless he somehow carries the Pistons to a top 2 seed in the East. And that's going to be very hard when I think the Pistons aren't better than the Cavs, Knicks, and Magic. But I just think Cade at the end of the season will be considered one of the best 10 players in the NBA. I've always been a big fan of his game and never sold my stock on him. I still can't believe that people thought that Cade wasn't a good player just because the Pistons had a 14-68 season. Like, why would you ever give up on a 6 6'6" wing that can create his own shot, pass, and get rebounds. And he really surprised me last season with his passing. I thought he would always average around 6 or 7 assists a game, but I was shocked that he averaged 9 assists last season. Cade is really showing that those Luka comps are true. Can Booker make All-NBA or be an All-Star this season? This is the first time since the 2019 season where Devin Booker has a roster specifically built around him. This roster doesn't have a star like Chris Paul or KD, so he's going to have all the pressure of being the star of the team. And I do think that Book can be an All-Star again this season. I like the roster that the Suns have built around him. They surrounded him with long and athletic players that won't take possessions off and play hard like Brooks, Dunn, Oso, and Malawach. This roster reminds me a lot of the Hawks last season with Trae Young. They surrounded him with long and athletic players that can cover up for his defensive mistakes. And Trae made up for it on offense with his passing and shot making. Book obviously isn't a better passer than Trae Young, but I do think that if Book can find the right balance of finding his own shot and passing, then he will be really good this season and be an All-Star. Everyone knows that when Joel Embiid is healthy, he's an MVP level player. Keyword healthy. In the past 2 seasons, this man has not been healthy. In the 2023 season, he only played 39 games, but in those games, he looked amazing. He was averaging 35 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. He had a real chance of winning the MVP again that season, but he tore his meniscus. And in the 2024 season, he had a knee injury that led him to only playing 19 games. And in those games, he didn't look like himself when he played. It's gotten so bad for Embiid that the national media is talking about him being one of the worst contracts in the league because he can't stay healthy. I'm hoping that Embiid can bounce back this season to show everyone that he's still an MVP level player. If Embiid can at least play 50 to 55 games, I think the Sixers can at least make the playoffs or the play-in. But if Embiid can't stay healthy again this season, then the Sixers are probably going to have another terrible season. DeAndre Ayton needs to show that he's a winning player this season. Offensively, Ayton should be fine on the Lakers because they have Luka, LeBron, Reeves that can set him up for easy points. And the one thing Ayton has always been good at consistently is his rebounding. So he should be averaging 16 points and 10 rebounds easily this season. He'll probably frustrate Lakers fans when he shoots a mid-range shot instead of driving towards the rim, but overall they'll be fine with his offense. Now his defense is where this man is really inconsistent. His defense in the Suns 2021 finals run was really important, and he hasn't really shown that level of defense since that finals run. And now that he's on a Lakers team that will probably start Luka and Reeves that are known for being bad defenders, he'll need to be consistently good on defense, but one of Ayton's biggest problems is that he isn't consistent. He'll definitely have 4 games straight where Lakers fans will think they got a steal on Ayton, and then for the next 15 games they'll see why he's one of the most frustrating players to watch. And that cycle will just keep repeating. But if Ayton wants to get paid more next season and stay in the league, he needs to show that he can be consistent and ready to win. A player that I think can make their team a true contender this season is Jaden Ivey. Last season, Jaden Ivey played 30 games for the Pistons. He was dropping 18 points on 46, 40, 73 shooting splits. After his injury, the Pistons were still a good team and were able to get the 6th seed. And that's made some people think that Jaden Ivey didn't make the Pistons better. But before his injury, they were starting to play good and turn their season around. In the 9 games before Ivey's injury, the Pistons were 6-3. Plus in the playoffs against the Knicks, you can see that Detroit was missing that second option scorer on the team. And Jaden Ivey can be that. Jaden Ivey needs to grow as a passer and defender to make this team more dangerous this season. Scoot Henderson is entering a season where I think he needs to prove he's a franchise player or he might get traded. Scoot hasn't had the career that everyone expected out of him so far as the 3rd overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft. He had a very disappointing rookie season because everyone thought he would come into the league ready to play. I remember when everyone was making fun of the Hornets for picking Brandon Miller over Scoot, but so far it looks like they made the right decision. And Scoot did have a better sophomore year, but the bar was pretty low after his rookie season. I think Scoot can still be a good player, and I think he needs to show that this season. Portland has surrounded him with talented players like Kamara, Drew, Sharp, and Avdia. And if Scoot can take a leap, then Portland can be more than a playing team this season. And if Scoot doesn't have a great season, then Portland could trade him and Jeremy Grant for a star player that can make this team better. They already have good guard depth with Drew, Sharp, and Dame coming back next season, so they wouldn't miss Scoot much at all.